Front and Center. Front and Center. A focus on important and significant developments affecting the lives of Filipinos, not only in the Philippines, but also those living and working around the world. Join us in Front and Center. Front and Center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Front and Center, a program that focuses on developments in the Philippines, legislation that provides policies and directions that strives to promote a better economy for the country, issues that concerns the welfare and well-being for every Filipino. All of these and more will be Front and Center. Join me in this half-hour program here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service. You can watch this program over Radyo Pilipinas World Service via Facebook page live broadcast. Just access our Facebook page, Radyo Pilipinas World Service. And you can also catch every Front and Center programs over our YouTube channel. Just type in your YouTube browser, Radyo Pilipinas World Service. The program Front and Center and the programs of Radyo Pilipinas World Service can also be listened to the following shortwave frequencies: 12.010 MHz, 15.640 MHz, and 17.820 MHz. So come and join us for another edition of Front and Center. I am Jerome Toledo, your host for today, sitting in for Ray Sampang. Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Tuesday highlighted the stellar growth performance of the Philippine economy in 2023 amid great odds. The Philippine president made this remark during his keynote speech at the World Economic Forum or WEF Country Roundtable in Malacanang. According to President Marcos, the Philippines capped the 2023 with the highest GDP growth in all of ASEAN member states, including China, meeting or even exceeding the expectations of major multilateral organizations such as the IMF or the International Monetary Fund, ASEAN Plus 3 Macroeconomics Research Office, and World Bank. He cited the investments, particularly in durable equipment and public construction, as a key driver of the country's full-year growth, extending his invitation to the WEF participants to join the Philippines as it enters a sustained period of robust economic expansion over the coming years by forging new and stronger partnerships with both the public and private sectors. Let's listen to the keynote address of Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. during the World Economic Forum Country Roundtable in Malacanang.
So, at the very beginning, allow me to extend a warm welcome to all of you, our distinguished guests, dear friends and partners in the private sector from around the world. To all those who have come from far and wide to join us in today's Country Roundtable, thank you for expressing your interest in the wellspring of investment opportunities that have sprung up here in the Philippines. Of course, I would be remiss if I do not acknowledge and extend our profound gratitude to our partners at the World Economic Forum for their enduring support and vital role in the Philippines' growth story and ascent to the global stage. As you may recall, it was about a decade ago that we hosted the 23rd World Economic Forum on East Asia here in Manila. Discussions back then centered on the glowing promise and potential of the Philippines as the strongest performing Southeast Asian economy in 2014. 10 years later, we bear witness to the full fruition of that vision. Today, against great odds, the Philippine economy shines as the brightest spot in the fastest growing region in the world. In 2023, the Philippines capped the year off with the highest GDP growth in all of Asia, including China, meeting and exceeding expectations of major multilateral organizations such as the IMF, ASEAN Plus 3, Macroeconomic Research Office, and the World Bank. The country's growth performance was largely driven by the resiliency of domestic demand, an impressive feat against a backdrop of elevated prices and overlapping crises in the global market. It comes as no surprise that investments, particularly in durable equipment and public construction, emerged as a key driver of our full-year growth. From the moment I took office, it was abundantly clear to me that securing investment-led growth required the right policy thrusts and priorities. In response, we quickly formulated a vigorous plan for boosting infrastructure development that featured cross-cutting strategies for enhanced efficiency to reduce operational costs and to avoid costly delays. To fast-track the rollout of infrastructure projects, we have prioritized a pre-selected list of 185 infrastructure flagship projects worth over 9 trillion pesos, or the equivalent of $163 billion. These projects, which offer high rates of return and enjoy streamlined processes, target strategically important sectors for sustainable development, such as physical and digital connectivity, agriculture, energy, health, and climate-resilient infrastructure. As of today, more than half of these projects are either already ongoing or approved for implementation, while around a quarter are seen to be financed through the public-private partnership mechanism. Since the early days of this administration, the economic team and I have consistently underscored the pivotal role of PPPs as a potent instrument for harnessing the combined strengths of the public and private sectors for inclusive and efficient nation building. To demonstrate our firm commitment to providing an enabling environment for PPP investments, we revised the Build, Operate, and Transfer Law implementing rules and regulations with the help of key stakeholders from the private sector within the first 100 days of the administration. This was soon followed by a slew of other regulatory reforms in the country's PPP framework, including the landmark PPP Code, which provides a stable and predictable policy environment for PPP projects. At the same time, we are actively focusing our policies on galvanizing foreign investments to generate a broadly beneficial investment boom. Our economic liberalization measures signal the dawn of a new era of investments here in the Philippines. Now, international firms are welcome to invest in a wider range of high-impact sectors, form joint ventures with Filipinos, or even fully own domestic enterprises in select renewable energy projects. We aim to cover every front at every point of your investment journey. Investors can now count on expedited processes and improved ease of doing business with the newly established green lanes for strategic investments. This directly addresses binding constraints to investments that have long impeded the flow of capital into the country. A sustainable future will not be shaped by siloed thinking and short-term policy making. With the advent of the fourth industrial revolution, we have reformed our corporate income tax structure and fiscal incentive system to attract investments in strategically important industries. The Corporate Recovery and Tax Incentives for Enterprises, or the CREATE Act, positions the Philippines as a strategic hub for high-quality investments by providing longer income tax holidays and additional income tax deductions for highly desirable operations. This includes projects covering research and development and those adopting advanced digital production technologies. We have also established the Philippines' first ever sovereign investment fund to channel capital toward productivity-enhancing sectors. The Maharlika Investment Fund is designed to serve as a magnet for equity financing from abroad and a vehicle for driving long-term growth without compromising efforts towards fiscal consolidation. Furthermore, we are actively fortifying trade and economic ties across the region to promote inclusive cooperation in a time of geo-economic fragmentation. The Indo-Pacific Economic Framework for Prosperity will establish a high standard commitment that will deepen economic engagement across the region. So together with ASEAN-Australia-New Zealand Free Trade Agreement and the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, we will champion our regional economic integration as a viable pathway for shared prosperity. But all this is a mere glimpse into the world of opportunities lying in wait here in one of the fastest growing economies in the world. Clearly, the Philippines is in a prime position to enter into a sustained period of robust economic expansion over the next couple of years. I extend an invitation to our guests and partners here today to join us in this exciting new phase. The members of the economic team are here today ready to discuss those opportunities that I speak of in greater depth. Once again, thank you for coming to this country roundtable on the Philippines, and I sincerely hope that today's event will serve as a fertile ground on which new and stronger partnerships will take root and flourish.
Meanwhile, in other issues, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. says the Philippines is keeping the peace with China amid the tensions in the West Philippine Sea, discounting the possibility of waging a war on Beijing. In an interview with Bloomberg Television on Tuesday night, President Marcos maintained that his administration is not inciting conflict in the contested waterway. The president stressed that he is merely defending the Philippine territory amid China's incursions in the highly contested waters. Asked about the United States' readiness to side with the Philippines in case of an armed conflict in the West Philippine Sea arises, President Marcos said such a scenario is precisely what his administration wants to avoid. He said the Philippines is working with its partners and allies such as the U.S. to prevent the possible escalation of tensions in the disputed waters. President Marcos also reiterated that he has no plan to invoke the 1951 Mutual Defense Treaty, or MDT, with the U.S. despite the growing tensions in the West Philippine Sea, saying he thinks about peace in the national interest. He said only existential threat could trigger the Philippines to invoke the MDT, adding that the U.S. has been certainly very supportive in every way. He, however, said it is dangerous to think about seeking the U.S. help in the event that the situation in the West Philippine Sea exacerbates.
The threat has grown. And since the threat has grown, we must do more to defend our territory. And so maybe perhaps that's what we people are seeing is that a more robust defense of our territorial rights as recognized by the international community through international law, through the UNCLOS. We hew very close to that. We do not leave we have not instigated any kind of conflict. We have not instigated any kind of confrontation. Perhaps that's an incursion, for example, to occupy, which has already happened, but we're still trying to keep it peaceful. But you see, we avoid, as I said, we think about peace in the national interest. It does not serve any purpose to heighten tensions, to say, okay, I am invoking now the Mutual Defense Treaty. And that I don't think anyone wants that, unless you've asked a very difficult question here. Unless the effects are such that it is a threat, it will become an existential threat to the country, then I think it's very easy to say that would trigger the Mutual Defense Treaty, the agreement between the United States and the Philippines. We can say that the United States has been certainly very supportive in every way. and it has the United States has really shown that it takes very seriously these agreements that we have. And so, but it is dangerous for one to think in terms of when something goes wrong, we'll run to Big Brother. That's not the way we treat it at all. We do this for ourselves. We do this because we feel that we have to do it. And it's not at the behest or of the United States. We would to take that a step back from that question is that is precisely what we want to avoid. We want to do everything we possibly can together with our partners and allies to avoid that situation whatsoever. This is not the poking the bear, as it were. We are trying to do quite the opposite. We're trying to keep things at the manageable level, to continue the dialogues, whatever they are, at every level. And we have initiated many of those dialogues we have dialogues at the sub-ministerial level, at the ministerial level, and at the executive level. And so I think that's what we have to continue, because there are many volatilities in the area, in the region.
And for our last topic today, the Philippines and the United States Foreign Affairs chiefs said that two allies' steadily growing security ties are not targeted against any country amid China's accusation that Washington is using Manila as a pawn to destabilize the South China Sea. During his visit to Manila this week, U.S. State Secretary Antony Blinken reaffirmed Washington's ironclad commitment to its alliance with Manila and said the U.S. will continue to bolster its maritime, defense, as well as economic cooperation with its Southeast Asian nation ally. He explained that Washington, D.C.'s foreign policy is to reinvigorate existing partnerships in the region and build new ones that are fit for the needs of its partner country. The U.S. top diplomat added this also applies to the improving trilateral cooperation between the Philippines, Japan, and the U.S. Meanwhile, Philippine Foreign Affairs Secretary Enrique Manalo echoed Secretary Blinken's remark, noting an improved cooperation with Washington, D.C. is vital for the Philippines to build its capacity not only for maritime but also on humanitarian operations. The Chinese Foreign Ministry had earlier issued a statement urging Washington, D.C. not to hurt China's sovereignty and maritime interests in the South China Sea in its promise to defend the country. Beijing had also previously criticized the expansion of sites under the two states' Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, or EDCA, saying it would damage the country's economic development at the end of the day. Blinken, for his part, said the EDCA expansion is strengthening its cooperation with Manila further as it brings important benefits for local communities while creating new locations for access to jointly work together on humanitarian assistance and disaster relief, among others. On top of defense and security engagements, the two foreign ministers also discussed further expansion of economic relations, including on semiconductors. Blinken said the Philippines and the U.S. are also assessing additional priority areas for investment, specifically on clean energy, transportation, logistics, and warehousing to increase food security. Let's listen to the joint statement of U.S. Secretary Antony Blinken and Philippine Foreign Affairs Secretary Enrique Manalo.
I had an excellent discussion with Secretary Blinken today. His visit comes at an important juncture in Philippine-U.S. relations. We've been on hyperdrive over the past year or so. Engagements across issues, areas, and between and among government branches have never been better. The challenge now is how to sustain and further elevate our alliance and partnership. Our discussion today focused on many issues. These include on defense and security engagement. We discussed ways to strengthen the alliance through better coordination at the policy and operational levels to ensure that it remains relevant and responsive to current, emerging, and cross-cutting challenges in the defense, security, and economic spheres, while staying true to our commitment to safeguarding and promoting peace, security, and prosperity of the region, always anchored on the rule of law. I also thanked Secretary Blinken for his government's consistent support, especially with regard to recent incidents in the South China Sea in the past year. And in this regard, we discussed regional issues, especially the situation in the South China Sea, and I stated that the Philippines is committed to managing disputes in accordance with our national interests, a rules-based international order, and international law, especially UNCLOS. We reaffirmed our shared view that a strong and capable Philippines would make a formidable ally for the United States. And on this note, I underscored the importance of more substantial U.S. investments towards enhancing our defense and civilian law enforcement capabilities. We also discussed avenues for harnessing our partnership through collaboration with other like-minded partners, particularly in the framework of the budding Philippine-U.S.-Japan trilateral cooperation. In 3 weeks, President Marcos Jr. will be going to Washington for a trilateral leaders meeting. Our leaders intend to capitalize on the complementarities between existing Philippine-U.S. and Philippine-Japan bilateral cooperation, notably in infrastructure, critical minerals, energy, and maritime security. On the economic front, we highlighted the robust engagement in the first 3 months of the year, highlighted or headlined by last week's U.S. presidential trade and investment mission led by Commerce Secretary Gina M. Raimondo, together with 22 companies in the ICT, energy, infrastructure, and logistic financial services industry. That visit highlighted the growing collaboration with some of these companies and the potential for new partnerships, many in areas that would cultivate a future-ready workforce. I welcomed the selection by the United States of the Philippines among partner countries under the Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment, or PGI, and the ongoing work on the Clark-Subic-Batangas PGI corridor. This aligns with our call for a bigger American footprint in infrastructure projects in the Philippines. It will also support the ecosystem necessary to bolster connectivity in the country and our further integration into regional supply chains. We have our work cut out for us, but I'm confident that we will deliver on our respective countries' and leaders' commitments to giving our people the better life and future they all deserve, marked by peace and stability in the region, a thriving and resilient economy, and an empowered community. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Secretary Blinken for his visit and for visiting us here in the Philippines.
I'll start again simply by thanking the Foreign Secretary for the very strong substantive exchange that we had today, as we always do, both between ourselves and with our teams. I was last in the Philippines shortly after the election of President Marcos, and it is fair to say that since then we have achieved remarkable progress in our relationship. The meeting between President Biden, President Marcos, and the White House last May set us on an ambitious course. And I think Ricky said it very well. We've been in hyperdrive. And that's demonstrated by the results we've already achieved, but also by our commitment to doing more together in the interests of both of our countries. The alliance has never been stronger, but we not only have to sustain that, we have to continue to accelerate the momentum. The Philippines is our oldest ally in the Indo-Pacific, more than 70 years working together to promote peace and security in the region. The EDCA expansion is strengthening that further, creating new locations for access to work together on humanitarian assistance, on disaster relief, including, for example, relief after the recent typhoons, and as well as creating greater interoperability, modernizing our military with real and important benefits for local communities. We have a shared concern about the PRC's actions that threaten our common vision for a free, open Indo-Pacific, including in the South China Sea and in the Philippines exclusive economic zone. Repeated violations of international law and the rights of the Philippines, water cannons, blocking maneuvers, close shadowing, other dangerous operations. These waterways are critical to the Philippines, to its security, to its economy, but they're also critical to the interests of the region, the United States, and the world. It's why we stand with the Philippines and stand by our ironclad defense commitments, including under the Mutual Defense Treaty. Article 4 extends to arm attacks on the Filipino armed forces, public vessels, aircraft, including those of its Coast Guard, anywhere in the South China Sea. Most important is we stand together in our determination to uphold international law for the Philippines, for everyone else, against any provocative actions. As the Foreign Secretary mentioned, we're also deepening our cooperation with partners who share this commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific. The trilateral with Japan is a very important platform for building even greater stability and deepening peace. Just over the past year, our governments have increased cooperation on a whole host of shared priorities, not only security, but economic cooperation, humanitarian assistance, critical infrastructure. We've had trilateral meetings over the past year to include meetings between myself, Ricky, and our Japanese counterpart, the Vice President, President Marcos, and Prime Minister Kishida, National Security Advisor Sullivan and his counterparts, and this week in Tokyo, Deputy Secretary of State Kurt Campbell will be meeting with his counterparts. All of this leading to the summit meeting between President Biden, President Marcos, Prime Minister Kishida at the White House on April 11th, the first trilateral leaders summit with the United States, the Philippines, and Japan. We're constantly expanding this partnership to meet bigger challenges, to seize bigger opportunities, including semiconductors, and you heard the Foreign Secretary referenced that. I had a chance today to visit the Amcor facility, which is quite remarkable. But if you look at what the Philippines is doing in this area, it's already extraordinary. The Philippines has about 20% of the global market for assembly, for testing, and for packaging. And of course, it's a big part of the Philippines economy, representing about 12% of its GDP. But we want to support Filipino manufacturing, decrease dependencies, strengthen global supply chains. In November, we launched a partnership under the CHIPS and Science Act to explore opportunities to grow and to diversify semiconductor supply chains. During the mission that Secretary Mondo recently conducted very successfully, this presidential trade mission last week, we announced plans to invest an additional $1 billion in the Filipino tech sector and to double the number of semiconductor factories here in the Philippines. And we're exploring, as you've heard, opportunities through the Growth and Investment, Global Investment and Infrastructure Program. Transformative investments in infrastructure that could have a major benefit for the semiconductor industry by addressing barriers to investment, including some of the logistics and energy costs. We're assessing additional priority areas for investment: clean energy, transportation, logistics, warehousing, to increase food security, for example. And it's a partnership, I'll just say in conclusion, that is growing day by day in a variety of other areas as well, from cyberspace to artificial intelligence to clean energy to critical minerals to outer space. We very much appreciate the Philippines joining us in sponsoring a resolution at the United Nations on artificial intelligence, the first standalone resolution on AI focused on deploying AI for the benefit of sustainable development. We now have more than 75 co-sponsors. So it's a long way of saying we've already seen an extraordinary expansion in our partnership these last couple of years, but as the Foreign Secretary said, there's a lot more to do, and I'm very glad to be here to advance that effort.
And that wraps up another edition of Front and Center. You can watch this program via our Facebook page, Radyo Pilipinas World Service. You can also catch every Front and Center programs over our YouTube channel. Just type in your YouTube search bar, Radyo Pilipinas World Service. And the program Front and Center and the programs of Radyo Pilipinas World Service can also be heard to the following shortwave frequencies: 12.010 MHz, 15.640 MHz, and 17.820 MHz. Together with our producer Erwin Peñano and technical personnel Milo Janela, I am Jerome Toledo, your host for today, sitting in for Ray Sampang. Join us again next time in another episode of Front and Center. Mabuhay and love the Philippines.
You have just heard and watched Front and Center. Front and Center. Join us again for another edition here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Front and Center.